Chapter 11. It was dark, and Arterous should have been back by now. I went out to the front porch after helping Mama with dinner. We were waiting for him to eat. He'd been gone for over an hour. Even if the circumstances were bad at the mission, he should have come back for help. I was beginning to seriously worry. As I turned to go back inside, I heard a bird in distress, but barely. I went out to the center of the front yard and strained to listen. It was an owl, injured. It is true that the time I had spent with Catherine and hearing her voice was limited, but it could be her. "Mother, I think Catherine is around here, hurt. I need to go out and check," I yelled over my shoulder. "Are you sure?" she asked, coming out rubbing her hands with a cup towel. "I can't be sure it is an owl. It may be her. If Arterous is in trouble, I have to know." "Oh, just a moment." Mama grabbed my arm, then turned back into the house. "I think I hear the professor calling." "I'm going before it gets any darker. I'll take a lamp and my pistol." I stepped in the front door, grabbed my gun belt, took the pistol, and made sure it still had percussion caps on all six. I took a match, lit the lamp, and headed up the trail. It took me about 20 minutes to make my way out on foot. I had to go around the left side to follow the sound of the cries, which were definitely in pain. I didn't detect anything else out of the ordinary. I arrived at a small group of large cedars which were located on the edge of the woods that protected our home. She was somewhere in the lower branches. I set the lamp on the ground beneath the low limbs and stooped underneath to take a better look. She was on a limb next to the trunk, dripping blood from her right wing. It didn't look broken or held in an unusual way, so maybe it was just a cut. I held my arm up and called her by name, and she stepped onto it. I grabbed the lamp and went back through the woods and the rock maze into the front yard. I went straight into the dining area and set her on the table. Mama was standing in the front room, talking to Professor Templeton. I found an old rag that was clean, and Catherine let me lift her wing and extend it, looking underneath for the injury. It was but a small nick under the arm, but it was a nick that had to have come from something man-made. Mama asked the professor to wait a moment, and she came over and held the wing and pulled her wand. As she did then, I found the note on her leg. I took it off and read it silently. Mama had her fixed up instantly, with a short, warm yellow glow on her wand tip touched to the cut. "What does it say?" she asked as she cleaned and pet Catherine, telling her it was all done. "They are trapped by Indian warriors, like the Comanche, in the basement of the chapel." That's what it says. "Mom, if he were okay, he would have been here by now. I genuinely have a bad feeling." "What did the professor want?" I asked. "Wait, let me tell him about this letter while he is still available." She went back to the portrait. It always looked silly to me since I had no ability to use these portraits, like a crazy person talking to a picture. The humor helped me learn to be okay with this, but I had also found out that laughing at them doing it was, sadly, frowned upon. So I went and sat down, trying to think about what could have happened to Arterous. Mama finished in a few minutes and sat down. She sighed and began to tell me what had been said. "The professor wants me to take a closer look at the fly swatter handle you boys found, with the old examination tube that your father had made in his last year of school. The one that lets us view very small things and examine them more closely, looking for anything. It is in his old trunk, stacked up on the back porch with other ones we use for storage. He is alarmed by the events with Arterous and advises us to wait until morning. He said we should send both of our owls out to try to contact Barthow for help and send them tonight. I told him Arterous's owl Catherine was injured and couldn't fly tonight, but maybe in the morning. Oh, and MacRath came back while you were out looking for Cat." "Yes, do you know where Barthow might be now?" I asked. "No, but your father's owl has found him before in the wilderness. We should try that too. That makes 3, she said. "I want to go, but I will wait until morning. I will not wait any longer than that, Mother," I said definitively. "All right, Let's get that scope and see what we can find. Also, did he have his monocle on his person when he left? Yes, he never took it off after we got home the day before yesterday, since we could have really used it that day, I said. Oh, well, we will make do, she said. We got up and went out back, dug out the chests in the way, and got his old school trunk. I set it on my mother's planting table and dug around until I found it. We set up on the dining room table, and Mama made the lamps all as bright as they would go. I went upstairs, found the stick in Arterous' saddlebag, and brought it down. Mama took it and began examining it, inch by inch. After reaching the end with the wire-wound frame of the fly-swatter end, she flipped it over and then jerked the metal end off. The wood of the stick looked the same, smooth ripples running in spirals all around it, and flat color. No light could reflect off of it. She made adjustments to the knobs and dials several times. It looks in the valleys of the grain to have nodules, almost like chicken skin, with a tiny filament protruding from the nodule centers, as a hair would from a paw. They were worn down below the peaks of the wood grain. She paused and sat straight up. They aren't hairs, son. They are remnants of root sprouts. This was the root of a tree, but I have no way of knowing what kind of tree. She went back to the eyepiece, now looking at the handle and end more closely. Yes, the very center of the handle of this is more fibrous in a linear fashion than the center of a tree's branch would normally is, but it is common from a tree root. She then looked at the end that had been covered by the swatter apparatus, and pointed the tip of the stick at the bottom of the scope tool she was using, fiddling with the wheels and knobs again. Yes, there is a single hole here, in the center, but no fibrous section at all. It is not much bigger than a human hair, but it is artificial. I honestly don't know how this even came to look like this. I haven't seen any normal, natural, magical, or ordinary process that would produce this visual result. I don't know what this is, she said with incredulity. While she worked on that, I penned 3 letters to Ranger Barthow, explaining as much as I could about the circumstances surrounding Arterous. I wound them tightly around, and with Mama's special stationery, it was practically invisible on their legs. Tied with her dark hemp string, it looked like little more than a bit of straw on its leg or foot. I sent McCord out and asked Mother to come speak to hers and Father's. Maybe it would help. She whispered to them and sent them off as well. It was all the help I could be, and it didn't feel like much. No amount of time in the territory, magic, or strength could overcome some of the many perils that populate our land, especially at night. She turned and looked at the portrait. He is still there. Let me speak to him for a moment. She went to the painting and explained to him what she found. I got a pot of coffee ready, along with cups, and waited for Mama to come and work her magic on it. After 10 minutes of their discussion, back and forth, she said good night and came over to me, sat down. She tapped it, and within a minute the aroma of perfectly brewed coffee emanated from the spout. It's a lot easier than doing it over a campfire, overboiling it, and cleaning out the egg white. It's the simple things, really. What did he say? I asked as I poured the coffee for us. Son, he isn't sure, but he said he might know someone who could help. He should know by the time the sun comes up. Honestly, I don't know when he has slept in the last 2 weeks. He's doing his best. She was saying, and almost sipped black coffee. She sat it down and gave it a quick fix-up. Cream and sugar instantly swirled into it. So, that's it. All we can do for the night, huh? Yes, but I did instruct our 2 owls to come wake me if they found him, so it is everything we can do. She was right. So we finished our coffee, finished the work around the place, and I even took time before bed to brush the horses again. When it became clear that I was overtired and the owls weren't going to be this lucky, I went ahead and washed up from chores and went to bed. Their small convoy had traveled without incident or notable event that first day from Koenigsee to Pitten, and had stayed in a small villa slightly east of the town, a residence of the regional minister who was in Italy on official business. The staff were very happy to welcome them, and even before daylight had all the horses tended to, drivers and soldiers fed, and they were all waiting on Monica and Clement's family to be ready to depart. Traveling in the heat of summer, most places are quite uncomfortable, but the cool breezes that made their way down past snow-filled crevices made this trip more pleasant than most. They left at about 8 o'clock in the morning, hoping to reach Kottenbrunn, where Clement's mother still lived. They would hopefully arrive in the early afternoon, as the roads were relatively manageable from here on to Vienna. He was also looking forward to spending the whole evening with his mother, visiting his eldest brother and his wife. His boy was also very excited to see his grandmother. The carriages stopped at midday at a small meadow next to a beautiful stream after crossing the bridge over it. There they set up a picnic, and while they set up to eat, Monica went down to the stream. The rock bed was carved down by the stream, and the very fertile soil was built up nearly 4 or 5 feet, then beveled away from the rock bed at a 45-degree angle. Large gray rocks littered the stream bed, and Monica went to one as large as a couch, took her boots off, pulled up her slacks, and walked to the stone and sat on it, feet in the water. This was fantastic. The sun was on the hotter side of warm, but with her feet in the crystal-clear stream of cold water, it couldn't be more perfect. As Monica realized the picnic was almost ready, a little green frog came jumping up the side of the rock she was on, and then onto her leg. She put her delicate hand down, and it walked sideways onto it. She raised it up to her face, smiling, and could have sworn the little frog smiled back. It closed its eyes, soaking up the sun. Just then, she really hoped Raileanu was okay, and was glad she was going to a safer place. She gave it a little kiss and set it back down, as they were waving at her to come eat. Maybe there would be a portrait she could use at the overnight halt so she could check on her own little frog. Professor Templeton had worked into the night, even before hearing the several messages from Mrs. Tellafrog about Arterous and the descriptions of the stick he had asked them to inspect closely. He recorded them in the book and decided to research further in the morning. Again, it was not to be. This time, Cleet shook him by the shoulder to wake him. Grabbing his glasses from the chain around his neck, which he had attached after his first encounter with this incredible man, and fumbling them on, he gave a shocked look of terror to Cleet. "Oh, my God, Cleet! You are making a habit of terrifying me," he gasped at him, clutching his chest. "2 incidents cannot accurately graph a habit. Besides, sir, there are important matters to discuss. May I sit?" Cleet stated. "Oh, yes, please do." The professor waved his hand around to the seating area, which consisted of 2 chairs. Cleet sat bolt upright, staring intently at the professor. "What your friend has found that was disguised as a fly swatter is in fact a root wand. It is a very old technique dating back to our time. You have not found any helpful references on the subject because it is one of the crafts we removed from the world when magical people were just pawns of the most brutal humans. They cannot be fashioned by any living creature from a knowledge base we are aware of. It is not something that is practical for anyone. It is imperative that they return it to you, whereby I will take possession and properly destroy it. Moreover, it is possible to determine its origin. It is our responsibility to resolve that as well. We will stay in contact, Professor. While I know you may have many questions, your service to the world in these matters will demonstrate your worth in any further endeavors. You know we refuse to spend time among your people, which does not benefit us. I can say this may benefit your people as well." The professor sat straight and attentive as a student, eyes wide, intentionally refusing to even blink until Cleet was finished speaking. So when he did finish, the professor blinked, and Cleet was gone. The chair where he had been sitting was still turned slightly toward the professor. He spotted something on the red fabric of the chair, so he went and leaned over, adjusting his glasses for focus. And there it was. A pure white hair, maybe a foot long, perhaps fallen from Cleet's coat. Well, at least, the professor thought, I'm not going mad. He had begun to worry that some of it may have been imagined due to the long hours. He had also felt as though he was letting everyone down by not finding any useful information, so it was good to learn he hadn't missed anything. He cleared his head, went and unlocked the door, and called his housekeeper. He would need to eat and wait at the portraits for anyone who could get word to the Tellafrogs as soon as possible. As the first orange rays of light streaked over our home, I'd been lying awake for an hour already. I heard a strange whooshing sound in the front yard, followed by boots on the front porch and the front door opening downstairs. I pulled on my pants, stepped into my boots, grabbed my pistol, and opened the door to my room sharply, pointing it towards the stairs, and waited to determine if it was trouble coming. "Hello!" I shouted. "I have a pistol aimed at you. Who are you?" "Well, boy, it's good you have a pistol on me, but you definitely ain't looking at me, or you'd know who it was." It was Barthow. "I'll be right down," I said loudly. I could also hear Mama moving around now, and we were happy it was Barthow, and that he had arrived this quickly. Mama and I were dressed about the same time and went downstairs, where Barthow had conjured breakfast all ready for us. Bacon, biscuits, and pork sausage gravy. And coffee. "You got the message?" I asked as I sat down to eat. "Yeah, don't you eat without blessing that boy," he said gruffly. I bowed my head and closed my eyes. "God bless his food, our family and friends, and show us your will each day." Mama patted my hand after I was done. "Good," Barthow said. "Let's eat this grub and go to your friend, buddy." "Where were you when you received it? Were y'all done with getting the new prison set up?" Mama wondered. "Yes, ma'am. It's called Schism, and it's in the craggy stone at the south end of the Rocky Mountains. There's a good fella there, name's Binti Rudabar, who'd come over from India. He worked with us for about a year, and then went off to work in one of Europe somewhere to learn how to make and manage a good prison. You'll be happy to know he decided after talking to us to let preachers in there to work up with them inmates, if and they wanna." "That's great news, Barthow. Father would be happy." Mama was happy to learn that, as there was consternation among the authorities when Dad decided to try it. But it worked out well for everyone, and their fears were unfounded. She smiled a bit to herself, no doubt remarking to Dad's memory how he was right and justified in that important choice. "We need to load up on this here meal, Raileanu. I checked that you had the horse here still, and one for me as well. I can take Arterous' horse and make our way over as quickly as we can. We'd heard about that twister that come through here yesterday. It went through a spot in a secluded creek bed where some Comanche had hid out. Killed a bunch of 'em. That whole creek bed was ruined. All them cottonwood trees that lined it just twisted in a giant knot about 20 feet tall and a couple 100 yards long. Ain't nobody can even get through it to try and save anybody. Terrible. Just awful." He shook his head, having seen carnage of tornadoes many times. "We ain't been over yonder yet. The rest of my guys are busy trying to help in other places where little towns got tore up, and without magic, it's slow a-going." Ain't no way to untangle that mess without magic, so if some folks is still around, we definitely can't do that." Mamma looked over my shoulder towards the portraits, and she excused herself and went to Professor Templeton's. Barthow and I had finished up, and he scraped all the leftovers onto a plate and whistled, and Bandos came running from somewhere out in the rock maze. Barthow set the plate down for him, and Bandos's tail was swinging wildly in thankfulness. Mamma came back over and said that the professor told her that the stick was an important clue. It was a root wand, which is ancient, harmful magic, and he needs that to be secured and returned to him. I told him I would seal it in a hex jar, and that you two were going to go check on Father Callius and Arterous. He asked if the root wand could fit in the bag that Clement gave you, and I explained it was only for copper. Which reminds me, little frog, your father has a small pile of raw copper he found out back. Not much, but it may help you. It's always been in my way, really, so please use it." "Little frog," Barthow stated, "let's get them horses ready and get going. I want to get there as soon as we can, but I'm riding so we can check along the way on any other damages from that storm." "You boys go on. I'll get this cleaned up and we'll spend most of the day in my new gardens," Mom said. "By the way, Mother, it was John's owl that found me." Barthow leaned back, still chewing. "That's a good bird. You might find out how to teach that to other uns. All 3 birds got fed this morning, too, before I set out. They out front." Barthow and I walked out to the stables and got ready to leave in about 20 minutes. I wound the watch, clicked it, and we headed out, waving to Mama as we walked into the passage in the rocks. When we cleared the woods and turned towards the mission, Barthow said, "I have a charm we learned from an Apache medicine woman to let us ride these horses at gallop for a whole hour without it causing trouble for them. We should wait and use it at the halfway mark on the road." "How does it work?" I asked. "Well, we take these little branches of green sage, cast a charm on them that makes 'em smell like chocolate. Well, smell like that to me. And it also make 'em swell with spring water once a horse gets them into their belly. Pretty good idea. Could have used that about 1,000 times, I recall," he said. "I call it sagebrush." "That's incredible. I need to put that in my collection of research that I can publish next year." "Well, maybe as long as it's on going into Europe, at least a couple more years, so troublemakers out here don't get wind of it. Make things harder on us rangers, if then you don't mind," he suggested. "I will wait until I confirm with you before I include it in published versions, yes." I looked around the landscape and honestly didn't observe any damage that couldn't be attributed to a big thunderstorm. "I don't think that tornado came this way. I think it may have eased by here, or gone further north than west." "Yeah, that place where the woods were twisted onto the Comanches is about 10 miles east of the mission, so I'm guessing you're right." After an hour, Barthow stopped, came out of his saddle, holding the reins, reached into his saddlebags and got the sage out. He handed me a branch of it, thick with leaves. Tapping them both with his wand, he went to the front and took the hackamores off both horses, and we let them eat it. When it was all chewed up and they stopped drooling, he refitted the hackamores, and we mounted and began galloping. Standing in the stirrups, things were going by so fast, we weren't really surveying damage anymore. For the record, there is a big difference between a horse being comfortable at full gallop for an hour and my legs being able to sustain it. After 15 minutes of it, we slowed down enough to sit for a few minutes, then began again. We did that maybe 4 times, and as we neared the mission, we could see smoke rising, not from a fireplace or burning leaves. There was a big fire, and my heart sank. I could tell by the scent that it was a destructive fire. We then rode at full speed for the last leg, and it was the mission itself that had been set ablaze. Most of the flames had gone out, but smoke was still pouring out from inside the walls. The gates were gone. The remains of them were smoldering charcoal strewn about. We strode straight in, pulling our pistols right before we went through the gateway. Barthow leaped out of the saddle before the horse even stopped and ran to the front of the chapel. I kept going to the back of the chapel, where I knew the basement doorway was, and then I dismounted. The door for the basement was pulled out and broken apart on the ground. An arrowhead was still visible on the inside of the door, draped in dry blood, so I headed for the doorway. "Arterous! Father Callius! Where are you?" I fast-stepped down the stairs, practically sliding on the last few steps and falling. I braced my forearms on the walls of the stairway as it opened into the room. Both men were there, stripped to underclothes. They were both dead, blood covering them in several areas, but obviously the priest's throat had been cut, and Arterous had a clear tomahawk wound in his forehead. The shafts of 2 arrows were broken off in him, one in his back, the other in his forearm. Fire ants had already found them and were swarming in the fresh, hot meat. I turned and went back to the steps to the courtyard, trying not to vomit, scream, or cry. "Barthow, I found them. They are down here." He came out of the back doorway of the chapel just around the corner to my left. "And they are both dead,"